Hello and welcome to Maths, Term 3, Week 1, Lesson number 2. Now yesterday we looked at what was a good statistical question. It was a question with variabilities or differences. Today we're going to look at those questions again and we're going to see how we can put those questions into a graph. And today we're going to put them into a bar graph. Our learning intention today is we are working out how to create a survey and transfer that information into a bar graph. I'm going to give you an example and that will involve a question that I've come up with. And my question was, which room do people in my family use the most in a day? Which room do people in my family use the most in a day? Now, instead of asking the people, what I did was I made tally sheets. And tally sheets look like this. And I placed a tally sheet outside each room. And over the course of the day, people in the household would mark off the tally sheet. And what that resulted in was at the end of the day, I would have which room was frequented the most during the day. And then I would tally that up and make that into a graph. And these are my tallies, but I'm going to show you that in a minute and how to make the graph. So our learning intention is we are working out how to create a survey and transfer that information into a bar graph. The success criteria, so we know that we've understood what we're looking into if you can choose and apply a good statistical question. And we looked at that yesterday. If you're unsure, go back to yesterday's video and have a look what a good statistical question looks like. I can devise a survey that can collect data and measure that data in a graph. I can represent data on a bar graph and I can draw conclusions from that bar graph. Now, difficulties that you might come across. Sometimes your questions might be too vague. Sometimes your questions might have a finite or a definite answer. Now, what that means is you might say, how many times you go into a room in a day? And you might say 4. Whereas the way we're doing it, when you go into the room and you mark off a tally, that gives us a better indication of how many times someone goes into a room during the day. You will need a pencil, some paper, a rubber, and some sheets of paper. The maths language that you'll be using today. You'll be using the word statistics. The collection and grouping of facts in number form. The information collected is called the data. Okay? The information collected is called the data. Probability. That's the likelihood or chance of something happening. Bias. A bias is you might ask a question and you might say, well, everybody else thinks this, so do you think this as well? So you're influencing the question. The question has to be a kind of neutral question. Veracity. Veracity means the truth and variability means differences. The instructions. Watch the attached video and that will give you an example of how to construct a bar graph. And if you haven't come up with a question, the question I've come up with, which is which is the room that is used the most in the house over a day, I'm going to put 5 questions here to give you an opportunity to use one of these other questions I've chosen, or it would be fantastic if you could come up with your own question. But here's an example of the other 5 questions, which I think are good statistical questions. Number 1, so you can choose a book or a novel, and on the one page of that book, I want you to see which is the most commonly used words. Choose 5 words and make a bar graph out of that one page of work. Number 2, in the average day, what do you think is the colour that appears the most in our lives? Now, you might say, when you're walking around, keep a tally chart of red, green, blue, yellow, orange. And when you've reached 10 of that object, then stop your graph and graph it from there. And then you'll have a good indication of which colour is the most frequent that you see. Number 3, in a day, what liquid is consumed the most in your home? Now, I thought this could be a tally situation as well. So every time you write down a list, say coffee, tea, milk, cordial, and you place it in the kitchen, and every time somebody makes a drink, you get them to fill out the tally chart. And at the end of the day, you get all those tally marks together and see which is the drink that is consumed the most in your household in a day. Another one. In a day, what coloured cars do you see the most? So if you're going for a walk, again, keep a tally, red, white, silver, black, and at the end of the day when you come in, you've got a good cross-section of the number of cars that you might have seen in the day and make a graph out of that. And the last one, what is the most popular shape that you might find in your pantry? Inside a pantry, there's lots of different shapes. In 3D shapes, we looked at rectangular prisms, we looked at cubes, we looked at cylinders, we looked at cones. See which is the most popular shape in your pantry and graph that. Remember, if you already have a question, that's fine, and you can also use any of these questions, or you can use my question. The important thing that we're trying to do is to make our data as accurate as possible. So, for example, like I said earlier, you could ask someone how many times they go into a room in a day and they'd give you a finite answer. 5 times I go in there. But to find out whether that's true or not, if you leave a tally chart by the door and they mark it, you'll see how many times they go in. Now, I'm going to give you an example of how to do that. So for me, my title was, which room do we use the most in a day in my house or home? There it is. Okay. Now, I constructed a bar graph. So the first way you construct a bar graph is to draw a vertical line and a horizontal line. The vertical line is called the vertical axis, and the horizontal line is called the horizontal axis. Please don't write those words, just draw the lines. Then, on the vertical axis, write the numbers. Now make sure you have at least numbers 1 to 10, and make sure you have enough numbers that cover the number of things that you've surveyed. So if someone's gone into a room 20 times and you only have 10, then the graph isn't going to be very effective or very truthful. So I've done mine 1 to 10 because the number of times people entered rooms didn't exceed 10. Then on the horizontal axis, write what you're surveying. In my case, it was 4 rooms. It was the bathroom, the bedroom, the lounge, and the kitchen. And they make up the horizontal line. Then go and collect your data. So that's how that starts off is, leave a piece of paper and say to your mum, dad, your brothers and sisters, just tick that off when you go into that room. Now I've done that, and I've got my data, and I've collected it through tallies. So here we have the bathroom, and my tally in the bathroom, 7 times people entered the bathroom during the day. 7 times. Lounge room, I had in my tally chart 6 times. So as you can see, the 4 strokes and the diagonal stroke equals 5, and 1 more is 6. The kitchen was 9 times. And the last one, the bedroom. So in a day, I entered the bedroom, or people entered the bedroom 4 times. Then you take that data and you put it into a bar graph. And here is that bar graph. So as you can see, my vertical axis has 10 places. My horizontal axis has the rooms that we went into, and I've filled it out with the data I collected. The only thing missing from this one is the title. So I place the title on there, and my bar graph is complete. Okay, once you've done that, have some reflection questions that you can use. Now do you know how to do a survey? How do you know your data collection was truthful or solid? What did you learn as a mathematician? How do you know your data is correct? What are some difficulties that you faced? Now you can upload your bar graph to the Compass portal, or you can contact me on my email address. It's lovely to see you. Take care and stay safe.